decision for us. Melissa, go ahead.
Pia, the Paul Body's second division has dismissed a petition filed by a group of human rights defenders through their lawyer Theodore Te, which seeks to void the certificate of candidacy of presidential aspirant Bongbong Marcos. In a 32-page decision handed down today, commissioners say the case, which was heard and filed in November and December last year, should have been outrightly dismissed instead.
Commissioners Socorro Inting, Antonio Co, and Ray Bulay say they agree that the 2 points raised by Te's group regarding Marcos's COC were important, but was wrong in claiming that the former senator lied in the document. Petitioners say Marcos's COC should be cancelled because he wrongfully said that he has never been found guilty of a crime which is a ground for perpetual ban from public office, meaning he can never hold any government position, and mistakenly claimed that he is eligible to vie for the presidency. This is based on Marcos found guilty of not filing his income tax returns from 1982 to 1985. However, the second division sides with Marcos's veteran lawyer Estelito Mendoza in nearly all his arguments. It says that the Court of Appeals did not impose that ban on government service for Marcos. The division also says that the non-filing of tax returns did not equate to moral turpitude or a crime against good morals, citing a Supreme Court decision involving his mother, former Congresswoman Imelda Marcos. The commissioners add, penalty cannot be imposed on Marcos since it only took effect in 1986, the year when Bongbong and his family were kicked out of Malacanang and fled to the United States. However, Commissioner Co said in his separate opinion that Marcos should still be held liable as the tax returns were based on Bongbong's income when he was Ilocos Norte governor. This is the second to be dismissed at the division level out of 7 cases against Marcos's candidacy.
Just means that one of the many challenges to his candidacy has been resolved. But there are other challenges still pending.
Tess says they will appeal the decision with the 7-member COMELEC and Bank. Marcos spokesman Vic Rodriguez says the COMELEC division upheld the law.
We thank the COMELEC Second Division for ruling unanimously dismissing the petition dahil sinabi ng COMELEC mismo walang material misrepresentation na ginawa si Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr.
Malacanang says it respects the poll body's decision. We are also anticipating the verdict of the First Division on 3 disqualification cases against Bongbong Marcos as well anytime soon. Also today, COMELEC is set to publish the final design of the 2022 ballots, which will still carry Marcos's name despite the pending other cases. But as of 6 p.m., the ballot has not been shared to media nor published on the COMELEC website just yet. Back to you, Pia.
Melissa Lopez there reporting. A presidential aspirant is worried about the COMELEC Second Division's decision on Marcos's case. Leody de Guzman says the move could signal how the other petitions against Marcos would turn out. De Guzman adds it is insulting to workers and taxpayers to allow Marcos to run despite his conviction in 1995 for multiple failures to file his income tax returns. De Guzman also says this only proves that there is a need for electoral and political reform, including prohibiting political dynasties. Another aspirant, Senator Ping Lacson, says it is best to respect the ruling as COMELEC has the mandate to decide in any case under its jurisdiction. His fellow aspirant and Senator Manny Pacquiao, meanwhile, saying it is better to leave it at that and to just wait for what happens next. Before the decision was released, Marcos's 2016 rival, Vice President Leni Robredo, says this will not affect her presidential bid in any way.
Lagi naman namin sinasabi na yung laban ng aking kandidatura hindi naman nakadepende sa nakabase sa galaw ng ibang mga kandidato. Para tayo, whatever the decision will be, sige lang tayo.
In my interview with Robredo last week, she also refused to comment on the petitions against Marcos and said she'd rather slug it out with him this May.
Ako, Pia, ayoko mag-comment dun sa disqualification case, but if you were to ask me, mas gusto ko talunin natin siya sa eleksyon para matapos na ito.
Mas gusto niyong talunin siya sa eleksyon. Pero anong matapos na ito? Ano yung ito doon?
Yung narrative kasi, Pia,
The
kung naalala mo, yung narrative, kung naalala mo, nung natalo ko siya sa eleksyon, dahil inoon niya yung social media, ang daming naniniwala na dinaya ko siya. Kahit ilang beses pa ako nanalo sa Supreme Court, ito yung narrative na pinupush niya. So kailangan talagang talunin siya sa susunod na eleksyon para once and for all, mahinto na yung ginagawa niya na pagpapapaniwala sa tao nung narrative na gusto niyang i-push.
Meanwhile, here's a look at what other aspirants are up to. Senator Manny Pacquiao, together with Senator Coco Pimentel, met with executives of Elon Musk's SpaceX. Pacquiao said they discussed the possible use of low-orbit satellites to provide cheap internet. He said they also raised the possibility of establishing a spaceship launch pad in the country, the use of Tesla batteries for the jeepney modernization program, and the construction of a subway system in Metro Manila. Manila Mayor Isko Moreno saying he's proposing the use of expressway toll booths for drive-through vaccinations. He adds he came up with the idea after seeing people from the provinces in his drive-through vaccination site at the Luneta. And the running mate of Vice President Leni Robredo, Senator Kiko Pangilinan, says he wants to provide health insurance to delivery riders. Pangilinan adds he is in constant talks with Robredo on how to push for PhilHealth, SSS, and Pag-ibig coverage for the sector. A church leader encourages voters to scrutinize aspirants and their platforms well, while the Christian Brotherhood calls on those who will run to be honest about their intentions. Stanley Gahet has that story.
The president of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines reminds voters to choose the country's next leaders wisely. During a forum of the group Brotherhood of Christian Businessmen and Professionals over the weekend, Bishop Pablo Virgilio David said it is important to review the profile of candidates, their real intentions and accomplishments as disinformation campaigns on social media proliferate. He has advised Filipinos to verify all information they receive.
It is our moral obligation to verify when accusations are made against people, the incongruence between thought, speech, and action. This is what often turns our word into a lie or a falsehood.
He also reminds voters that discerning people know what is right from wrong.
Hindi paninira ang pagsasabi ng totoo tungkol sa tunay na nangyaring pang-aabuso noong mga nakaraan. Ang tawag po dito ay pagtutuwid. Pagtutuwid ng kaalaman sa kasaysayan. Kailangan lumingon ng tama sa pinanggalingan.
The Brotherhood of Christian and Businessmen Professionals has launched the Be Honest campaign to guide voters in choosing the candidates to vote in the coming elections.
Tapat dapat. Be honest. That's our battle cry. Authentic, positive change starts with honesty. And honesty starts with you and me.
The call now is to make a decision. Are we brave to choose honesty as our own advocacy?
The CBCP and the organization encourage all voters to pray for the upcoming elections and to select honest candidates who will truly serve and lead the country.
So purely yung heart mo dapat is para naman sa mamamayan, hindi yung pangapansarili mo lang.
Tignan natin yung bibliography ng tao, yung mga nakaraan. Kung okay ba siya, lalong na corruption, maawa kayo sa amin. Like kayo ng like ka ng like, hindi naman kayo nag-isip. Sana gumising na ang dapat gumising.
Stanley Gaete, CNN Philippines.
Ahead on Newsnight, it is day one of the no vaccination, no ride policy. How was it carried out? 2 inmates who bolted the new Bilibid prison's maximum security are killed in a firefight, while the NBI foils an escape attempt of 3 detainees, including a self-confessed drug lord. Details next. Welcome back to Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. The Labor Department issues its very first advisory for the year, quote, urging private sector employers to pay the leaves of workers undergoing quarantine or isolation because of COVID-19. For a labor group, however, merely urging is not enough. Tristan Nadalo explained this to us live. Go ahead, Tristan.
The Labor Department reiterates that private sector employees considered as close contacts, suspect, probable, and confirmed cases of COVID-19 need to complete the prescribed isolation and quarantine period. In the labor advisory, the department urges employers to adopt and implement a paid isolation and quarantine leave program. This means that workers who will be infected or exposed to the virus will still be paid on top of their existing leave benefits. DOLE adds this is also different from the benefits provided by the Social Security System and the Employees Compensation Commission. But the key word here is urge, which is unacceptable to the Labor Group Trade Union Congress of the Philippines. In a statement, the group says DOLE is walking away from its responsibility in ensuring that infected and exposed workers are properly compensated by merely urging and not mandating employers to pay the isolation and quarantine period. Last week, the Labor Department says that it will be difficult to make the isolation and quarantine leave benefits mandatory because there is no legal basis for the department to require it. But DOLE is supportive of any proposed legislation to make isolation and quarantine leaves mandatory. Back to you, Pia.
Tristan, how is an employers group reacting to the advisory?
Based on our recent conversation with the Employers Confederation of the Philippines, they don't see any problem adding leave benefits for workers who will need to isolate or quarantine. In fact, some big companies are already doing it. But what they see as a challenge is how this will impact micro and small businesses which don't have the means or financial capability to add more benefits due to the impact of the pandemic. Back to you, Pia.
Tristan Nadalo there reporting. The no vaccination, no ride policy took effect today in a bid to help stem the spread of COVID-19. How did day one go? Chrissy Di Matulak filed this report.
Authorities flagged Cece Morales on day one of the no vaccination, no ride policy. They asked her to get off the bus as she is unvaccinated. Morales says she just gave birth and did not have the time to get vaccinated.
Ano na lang, yung diretso na lang po kami sa papuntahan namin na walk-in. Eh, hindi naman namin alam na ganyan na mahuhuli kami. Kasi po ba, kakapanganak ko lang po. Bagong panganak ako. Eh, hindi po ako nagpabaksin nung buntis ako kasi natatakot ako baka mapano yung baby.
For local governments like Quezon City, unvaccinated people who can't take public transport may proceed to the Quezon City Memorial Circle, where they can get their first dose. The Transportation Department says authorities only issue warnings on the first day that the policy takes effect. But it adds enforcement will be stricter in the following days. The LTFRB says fines for drivers and operators found violating the rule will range from 5,000 pesos for the first offense, 10,000 pesos and impounding of unit for the second offense, and 15,000 pesos and suspension of franchise for the third offense. The unvaccinated will still be allowed to take public transport as long as they qualify under the exceptions.
The exceptions include those who, by medical reason, cannot be fully vaccinated. All they have to do is present proof that medical certificate and the other details that they cannot be vaccinated, they will be allowed to board. Another exception is for those who's going to avail of essential goods and services. So even though they're not vaccinated and their reason for traveling using public transportation is to avail of those services, all they have to do is show proof.
The Commission on Human Rights, in the meantime, warns of possible abuses in carrying out the policy.
We cannot say that in the extreme that this policy is a violation of human rights. I guess what we are trying to say here is what we're trying to do is to remind the government in the implementation of this policy and in the policy itself to make sure that they do not result into excesses, especially in the implementation. We are really worried about the implementation kasi I think 30% of the NCR is not yet vaccinated. Medyo, if you convert that into absolute numbers, that's a lot. That's a lot of people.
The Transportation Department assures the public it will be considerate but strict with enforcement. It adds the policy will help stem the further spread of COVID-19. Chrissy Di Matulak, CNN Philippines.
More people are coming down with COVID-19. The country has logged the highest number of active cases for the 6th straight day. More than 290,000 Filipinos are sick and contagious, with over 37,000 new infections today. The positivity rate stays at above 40%, meaning 2 in 5 people tested are COVID positive. This excludes data from 12 laboratories. The Octa Research Group seeing a decline in cases here in Metro Manila, but it is still uncertain whether the region has already peaked. Research fellow Guido David says the surge may now be creeping into the provinces.
Medyo marami na meron sa Region 2, meron din sa Region 1 sa Pangasinan, tsaka sa La Union, sa Benguet region, sa Bicol region. Other parts of Central Luzon ay medyo bumibilis pa lang. Sa Western Visayas, Central Visayas, even sa, yung sinabi ko nga kanina, Tacloban, even sa Mindanao, may nakikita na tayong simulang pagtaas ng bilang ng kaso.
Misinformation and religious beliefs are among the reasons for hesitancy, resulting in low vaccine coverage in the Bangsamoro region. Apart from that, health workers face logistical challenges. More from Caroline Bonkin.
About 200 Muslim religious leaders in the Bangsamoro region got vaccinated against COVID on Monday in hopes of convincing their fellow Muslims to follow suit. Despite government efforts, some Bangsamoro residents refused to take the vaccine because of misinformation and religious beliefs. The health minister says having imams and ulamas get vaccinated could help address their concerns.
Maraming agam-agam yung ating mga Muslim brothers regarding yung pagiging halal ng isang produkto, yung pagiging safe ng isang product, at saka kung naaayon ba yan sa Islam na teaching. Malaking bagay yon na yung ating mga Muslim religious leaders will be on our side upang sila mismo ang magpapatotoo na ito ay katuruan din ng Islam, halal siya na gawain at safe siya at effective.
The Bangsamoro region has the lowest vaccine coverage in the country, with only 25% of its target 4 million population fully vaccinated. The Bangsamoro health minister says at the rate the vaccination is going, it would take until next year to inoculate majority of the population. Aside from hesitancy, there's the matter of logistics in far-flung municipalities. Health workers have to travel far by foot or by boat, weather permitting, to remote villages like this trip to Barangay Katidtuan and Kakara, Sultan Kudarat.
Ang coverage namin ng mga barangays are those barangays na nasa mga along the riverside, na mahirap puntahan, yung nasa mga bundok, at saka yung mga island provinces.
Vaccinators also have a hard time reaching conflict-torn communities and locating the region's bajaus, who are often on the move.
Maya't maya, mayroon tayong armed conflict together with the lawless element. So yun yung minsan mga dahilan na hindi namin masyado napupuntahan, yung especially yung areas na yun na kung saan madalas mayroong mga armed conflict because of security reason. Meron pa kami mga group of people dito, yung mga Bajau communities which are very highly mobile. Yun, makita mo sila ngayong araw, the next day hindi mo na sila makikita.
Though slow, the health minister says vaccination has picked up with the help of incentives.
Strict na rin ang mga borders natin. Nagtatanong sila ng mga vaccination cards. For example, dito sa Cotabato City, bago ka makapasok ng syudad, tatanungin ka kung meron kang vaccination card. Those are the things I think na medyo magpapaganda ng ating vaccination coverage.
Lanao del Sur, which has the lowest vaccine coverage in the region, is already seeing a spike in cases. Aside from speeding up the vaccination, the health ministry has been preparing health facilities in case Omicron reaches their border. Caroline Bonkin, CNN Philippines.
In other news, 2 prisoners who escaped the maximum security compound of the new Bilibid prison in Muntinlupa have been killed in a firefight. That's according to the city's public information office. Hot pursuit operations underway for the 3rd prisoner. The 3 prisoners were convicted of a number of crimes, including murder, attempted murder, robbery with homicide, frustrated homicide, and illegal drugs. In the meantime, 3 detainees at the National Bureau of Investigation, including self-confessed drug lord Kirby Espinosa, also tried but failed to escape. The NBI said it immediately acted on information about the escape attempt. Justice Secretary Bernardo Guevara says he instructed the Bureau to intensify its intelligence work. In global headlines, the country condemns the 4-year jail term handed to Myanmar's ousted civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi by a military court last week. In a statement, Foreign Affairs Secretary Teddy Boy Locsin says the military is using the judicial system to silence political opponents and crush democracy. Locsin urged leaders to release all political prisoners and fully respect human rights and the rule of law. The junta toppled democratically elected leaders in a coup in February last year. The United States and Japan lift tsunami advisories following the eruption of an underwater volcano in the South Pacific on Saturday. Tsunamis hit the U.S. state of Hawaii, Japan, and Tonga's largest island, sending waves flooding into the capital. As of Sunday, New Zealand, which is near Tonga, says there were no reports of injuries or deaths there, but telecommunications were affected. New Zealand has sent people to the island to assess damage and provide aid. India reports over 250,000 new COVID-19 cases for the 5th straight day amid the spread of the highly infectious Omicron variant. These numbers have not been seen since the devastating wave caused by Delta last year. India's election commission extended a ban on physical political rallies and gatherings for state polls until Saturday. As of Monday, the country's total infections now stand at more than 37,300,000. Still to come on Newsnight, find out which movie took the top spot at the U.S. box office, breaking the new Spider-Man film's month-long reign, and take a look at this doctor and nurse's life-saving efforts, all while having COVID-19 themselves. Details after the break. Welcome back to CNN Philippines. After about a month of ruling the U.S. box office, Spider-Man No Way Home has been dethroned by the new Scream. The 5th film in the slasher franchise earned an estimated $30.6 million upon opening. This is nearly double the earnings of the last installment. Scream 4 debuted with $18 million in 2011. Scream comes out in local theaters February 2nd. American TV icon Betty White would have been 100 years old today, and fans in the U.S. can mark the occasion at the movies. We get the details from CNN's David Daniel in the Hollywood Minute.
Hello, I'm Betty White.
Betty White, A Celebration, was more than a decade in the making and includes the final on-camera interview with the much-loved entertainer just days before her death on New Year's Eve. It's set to play in more than 1,500 U.S. theaters tonight only, what would have been White's 100th birthday. Check fathomevents.com for locations. Celine Dion has canceled the final 16 shows of her Courage World Tour. The singer is dealing with severe and persistent muscle spasms, according to a post on her Instagram account. The same issue prompted Dion to postpone her Las Vegas residency last October. Nearly 6 years of legal wrangling has finally resulted in an agreement on the value of Prince's estate. According to the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, it's $156.4 million, nearly twice the appraisal of the estate's administrator. If the administrator, the IRS, and Prince's heirs agree, the process of distributing Prince's wealth could begin next month. In Hollywood, I'm David Daniel.
And back here at home, making the rounds on social media, these health workers going above and beyond to help our kababayans in this pandemic. Despite having the virus themselves and exhibiting mild symptoms, Dr. Caroline Costello Mandin and Nurse Ronnie Galanta volunteered to operate on a COVID-positive patient. With 8 of their operating room staff also catching the coronavirus, the two did the procedure to protect others in the OR. And now, before we go, a few reminders for everyone so we can slow down the spread of the virus. Wear your masks, ideally the 3-ply surgical kind, for protection from the Omicron variant. And if you feel symptoms, isolate immediately and get yourself tested. Continue following health protocols so we can keep one another safe from COVID-19. And that is it for tonight. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
RPN, Radio Philippines Network Incorporated, DXKO. 13.68 sa dial sa inyong radyo. RPN DXKO, ang Radyo Ronda dili sa Dakbayan sa Cagayan de Oro. Sibiyahan na may galaon sa katawan, andang serbisyo sa tanan. Ang RPN DXKO Radyo Ronda sakop sa KBP, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
Let's go straight to the sources of the story. We have presidential aspirant and Manila Mayor Isko Moreno and his vice presidential running mate, Dr. Willie Ong Yorme. Dr. Willie, magandang umaga po sa inyong dalawa and welcome to the source.
Thank you, Pinky. Maraming salamat sa iyo at sa iyong mga staff dyan sa CNN. At kay partner Doc, Willie, good morning.
Good morning po. Yorme.
Okay. Okay, umpisahan na po natin kay Mayor Isko. Yorme, malakas naman po talaga yung ugong-ugong natatakbo kayo bilang Pangulo. And for the most part, sinasabi nyo na trabaho muna ang kailangan yung gawin, ano? I'm sure there are a number of reasons that push you to run. But if I were to ask you, ano ho yung top 3 reasons or things or circumstances that actually pushed you to run? And a follow-up question on that was, why was the declaration made yesterday? Dahil marami pong nagulat.
Okay. Thank you. Una, siyempre, alam mo, kung sarili ko lang ang iisipin ko, dito na lang sa Maynila, and we'll see the countries like, having so much trouble and challenges ng mga tao. Para bang nakakaawa naman na panoorin ko na lang yung laban. Nakakalumo talaga ang tunay na sitwasyon sa baba. No? But be that as it may, this is democracy. I thought, okay, sige, we'll offer something for our people. Different things like, bilisan natin ng kilos and all other things. And fortunately, at salamat naman sa mga weeks of inikayat natin si Doc na maging bahagi ng plano natin to really address our COVID situation in the country so that we can focus more on our economic recovery. Like in Manila, na partner ko, Doktor, at so far naman, sa awa ng Diyos, matagumpay naman yung partnership ng mayor at vice mayor na doktora. So So sabi natin, tingnan natin niya yung si Doc Willie. O kasi nakikita ko si Doc Willie na mukhang may puso to sa tao on his own, no? On its own, kumikilos siya at hindi rin siya nagpapapigil. No? Kaya yun ang naisip namin. Sige, at salamat naman, umuo si Doc Willie. Alam ko marami rin nagkumbinsi sa kanya na tumakbong senador. Isa na nga rin ako doon. But we opted, diinan na natin to. Ipakita natin sa tao yung layunin natin, bakit tayo sasali sa halalan. Yung layunin na ang partner natin can continue to address the current situation with regard to health issue. So that most of our time will be dedicated in addressing future jobs for our people, certainty with our policies, and so on and so forth. So these are the things that the reason bakit kami nakipag-apply, kasama kaming aplikante sa mamamayan para sa pagpanguluhan at Vice Presidente.
Yorme, although meron pong sumusuporta of course sa inyo, meron din ho kasing nagsasabi na kaka-mayor lang, pangulo na kaagad. Hindi man lang nag-senador, hindi man lang nag-vice president, diretso sa pagkapangulo. What do you say to those people who are saying na tila nagmamadali naman ata kayo?
Well, that's a good point. I respect that opinion. But let me refresh your memories that I've been serving the city and the government for 23 years of my life. I'm 46 years old. Half of my life was dedicated to public service. Second, remember, marami rin namang mga taong nahalal, no? Nahalal na mga, by yung siguro nature or ano tawag yan, destiny. In the likes of Sumalangit Nawa, si Tita Cory, no? Si Tita Cory, nahalal ng tao, naupo ng tao, kahit na siya ay plain housewife, wala rin siyang experience because yung trust ng tao. Kasi yun naman ang importante muna yung tiwala sa iyo yung tao. At marami rin nahalal ng mga senador. Pinky, marami rin nahalal ng senador. Wala ring public office or they are in a different agency for a short period of time, then they got elected. So, to cut the long story short, as far as I am concerned, I've been serving the public half of my life. No, I think that thing speaks for itself. Second, modesty aside, pinagsikapan naman namin na yung kalugmukan ng Maynila sa mahabang panahon, naitaguyod naman natin, naibalik ulit natin yung tanyag ng pagiging kapitolyo ng bansa. In fact, we became competitive in the world, like in the Bloomberg philanthropy. Out of 263 cities in the world, we became top 50 finalists in that competition.
Yeah.
And including the national agencies of our country. Nung last year, despite the pandemic, binigyan naman tayo ng pagkilala. And in mga sertifikasyon ng pagpapatakbo ng gobyerno ng maayos, ng iba pang ahensya ng gobyerno. So in a short period of time, despite the pandemic, nagtuloy-tuloy ang buhay at pamamahala sa lungsod ng Maynila. And these are the things that we need, going against this pandemic na talagang mananatili pa sa atin hanggang 2022.
All right. So let me shift to Dr. Willie Ong. Dr. Ong, again, magandang umaga po sa inyo. Napansin ko po kahapon, tila wala kayong prepared speech. Ano po? May kinuha lang kayo sa parang polo nyo na maliit na papel. Some of the stuff that I remember na sinabi niyo po, wala talaga po ito sa inyong plano. And a lot will agree that this came from left field. Nagulat talaga yung mga tao na ikaw ang vice presidential bet ni Mayor Isko, no? Pero dalawa po yung sinabi niyo that struck sa akin. Sabi niyo po, maraming coincidence at yung pangalawa, sabi niyo may kutob kayo kay Yorme. Ano ho ba talaga yung kutob niyo kay Mayor Isko? At nagdesisyon kayong sumabak at tumakbo bilang Vice President?
Yes, oo, talagang pinagdasal ko maigi, tinitingnan ko siya maigi kasi marami na ako nami-meet na mga politiko doon sa mga experience ko sa 2019. Gusto ko makita kung talagang mabibigay niya, magagawa ba niya to, at pinagdasal ko maigi. Tapos nung nakita ko, right now I'm very confident he can do it. When I see him, I feel confident, nakikita ko maganda yung partnership namin. Sinibigay niya sa akin ng naalagaan itong health sector, kung anong magandang na ibibigay sa kababayan natin, kung ano yung mga susunod na second generation vaccine kasi pipili tayo niya. Ano isasaksak sa ating katawan, pati sa mga anak natin. Papaaralin na ba natin sa school o hindi pa? Anong gamot ang ibibigay? Napakahalaga nito. Kung ano meron sa mayayamang bansa, sa Amerika, sa Europa, kawawa naman yung kababayan natin kung hindi natin ibibigay ito. Nakita ko nagagawa niya sa Maynila. And he's really very serious in studying lahat itong mga health problems. Pero kung matutulungan ko siya, sabi ko nga, okay naman ako kung sa Senado, pag-iisipan ko. Pero kung saan niya ako gusto ilagay, susunod lang ako.
Okay, pag-usapan po natin yung popularity. Sabi ni Mayor Isko, I'm neither the son or the daughter of a president. Ang dagdag nyo pa, walang mga avenues named after your family, kahit waiting shed. Sabi nyo nga, wala. Iisa lang yung pangalan na Domagoso. While you may seem popular, Yorme, sa Metro Manila, maybe sa Calabarzon, paano ho ninyo siguro i-introduce yung sarili ninyo sa mga taong posibleng hindi talaga kayo kilala, sa mga liblib na lugar? Ang City of Manila ho ba ang magiging showcase ninyo para mapakilala kayo sa mga taong hindi kayo kilala?
Well, what happened to Manila is just one thing. No? Siyempre gusto ko rin ma-meet, makilala ako ng mga tao doon sa bundok ng Tralala, sa talagang sulok ng bansa. And we have that kind of commitment that we will go to them and try to be reasonable and express our intention, state our intention to the far-flung areas of our country. And I hope I will be given a chance. But then again, Pinky, hindi naman to Mr. and Mrs. Congeniality competition. Hindi naman to Mr. and Mrs. Universe. This is about the lives of our people. And history or things that you have done in the past, or even records of what you have done, is an asset also that can be shared to every Filipino. Yun naman ang akin, ipagtatapat ko naman kung ano yung nagawa sa Maynila at ano yung mga pangarap natin at yung karakter natin. Because tingin ko nowadays, yung values ng isang kandidato at saka yung kanyang mga karanasan, isa sa mga pwedeng maibenta sa ating mga mamamayan bilang aplikante. When you try to apply for a job, di ba? Tinitingnan yung experience mo, tinitingnan na pati mga yung educational background mo, tinitingnan yun, sinisiyasat yun. Or tinitingnan din nila, who are you as a person? So meron kang experience, medyo sana pumasa ako sa academic background na requirements nila. Tapos yung point of use, that's very important because it's going to be a policy. Remember, we all know that halos lahat ng lumalabas sa bibig ng leader, it became a policy. So that is very important in job interview, during the job interview. Ayun naman ang gagawin naman natin. And I hope my fellow Visayan, by blood, Pinky, I am 100 Bisaya. Hindi mo lang makikita sa akin, at hindi ko naman yan ikinubli, but my father is from Panay Island, Antique. My mother is from Samar. Sila ay mga biktima ng neglect ng nakaraan. Katulad din ng mga ibang kababayan natin sa probinsya. Kasi kung naging mabuti ang pamahalaan sa kanila nung araw, ay hindi sila pupunta sa Maynila para mag-squatter at magbakasakali. So I am the product of that. And it's very clear of the connection. So if we can make it better there, in the provinces, in the far-flung area, sa mga bundok ng Tralala, wala nang pupunta sa Maynila at para magbakasakali at mag-squatter dito na mas mahirap ang buhay. So, if we can send that kind of message and hope, or at least put into action, no? Hindi lang yung lip service, then I think there will be an equal opportunity anywhere in the country in the coming future.
And speaking of popularity, I also want to ask Dr. Willie Ong. He's very popular on Facebook. You have 16 million followers. Sa YouTube ho ata 6.5 million ang iyong followers. However, tumakbo ho kayo in 2019 and obviously, while you made it to number 18, obviously hindi po kayo nanalo. How do you plan, siguro sir, Dr. Ong, to translate this popularity on social media? How do you plan to translate that into votes in 2022?
Siyempre, I'll just be myself. Gagawin natin yung kaya natin and I'll be joining Mayor Isko sa mga pupuntahan niya, sa mga interviews niya. And I learned a lot in 2019. I learned a lot about politics, the good points, the bad points, and maraming lessons doon are very important. And I'll be taking those for 2022.
Kailan ho kayo mag-officially resign sa Lakas CMD, sir?
I think they have talked already with Lakas CMD. Actually, I wanted to stay in Lakas CMD, but I'm not sure what is the process there. So if I have to resign, I will join Mayor Isko's party.
All right, we need to take a very short break. The source will be right back. And you're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our guest today, Manila Mayor Isko Moreno and Dr. Willie Ong. Just very briefly, I want to touch on this to both gentlemen. Really, the choice of Mayor Isko was Senator Grace Poe. Sabi na po ni Mr. Lito Banayo, you tried and tried, but in the end, she said no. I wanted to ask you both, do you think this is divine intervention or maybe even destiny that because humindi po si Senator Grace Poe, ay kayo po, Mayor, naghanap ho kayo ng ibang partner. Because if it was Senator Grace Poe, obviously, hindi po top of mind yung isang tao, Vice Presidential bet na mangunguna sa COVID response ng gobyerno sakaling manalo kayo.
Alam mo, ang maganda nga minsan, alam mo, yung sinasabi ko lagi, ang mga pagsubok sa buhay teaches you lessons. And from the lessons, you will learn. Ang maganda naman, pag nadapa ka, bumangon ka agad. And these are the things that we need in the coming days, months, and weeks, and years of our lives dealing with pandemic. Tama yung sinabi mo. Alam mo, sinabi ko rin yung kaila Doc Willie noon. Sabi ko, siguro talagang sinasadya ng tadhana, no? Na from with all the challenges, no, dealings with some leaders of our country, then here we are. Pinaglinaw ang isip natin. No? Why not? Then we analyze it. What are the challenges of coming days? And science will agree with us. The pandemic or COVID-19 will stay. So, tingnan natin. We offer something. And I agree with you. I do believe in God. Naniniwala ako kay Jesus, no? Kay Mama Mary. Baka nga mamaya, hulog ng langit itong sitwasyon namin ni Doc Willie to really offer something different. And the thing speaks for itself. No? Doktor, Vice President, tapos Presidente, may karanasan, no? May managerial skills. No? At battle, modesty aside, I think Dr. Willie and I are battle-tested in the COVID situation in our country. In his own world, in our world, here in Manila. Kaya I would think that way, that maybe God intervened. Hopefully, I'm not using God in this conversation, but sa'yo na rin naman ang galing, maybe nga, may awahan Diyos.
Si Dr. Ong, I'm going to change the question naman. Meron ho kasing si political analyst, si Dean Tony Lavinia. Ang sabi po niya, stroke of genius daw itong partnership na to. I believe he was the one that said that because bago, out of the box, kumbaga nga. Kayo ho ba confident? That's what I want to know. Are you confident with such a team up that this will actually change people's perspective na nakasanayan na ang binoboto ho talaga mga politiko na presidente at vice president. This is obviously, again, to use the term out of the box. Are you confident that this will allow people to gravitate towards Isko Moreno and Dr. Willie Ong tandem?
For me, Pinky? Yes, ang focus ko lang, Pinky, talaga, if Mayor Isko wins for the next 6 years, ano magagawa natin? Specifically sa health sector. So iniisip ko na kung anong gagawin, ano yung COVID response natin for health workers, hospitals, medicines, vaccines, especially yung trust ng people, yung pronouncement. Like for now, mababa yung vaccination rate natin. So iniisip ko na anong magagawa natin in 6 years, maybe a new infectious disease hospital, we need a Center for Disease Control para dito sa atin. So very neglected na yung health sector. After the health sector, we are studying the whole program of government. 5 hours na kami nag-aaral nito. Bilis kilo. So, we're really studying and ready for anything.
Doc Willie, I will follow up na dahil napaka-importante yung mga sinasabi niyo. For example, Philippine Genome Center, hindi ho ba, nasa Luzon, kailangan natin sa Visayas and Mindanao. They were asking for 100 million peso budget and 50 million Visayas, 50 million in Mindanao. RITM, pinag-usapan na rin po. You mentioned that, mga hospital, nurses, etc. But very important, yung sinabi niyong vaccine. Sabi niyo, ituturo ko sa inyo yung pinakamabisang bakuna. Ano ho ba para sa inyo ang pinakamabisang bakuna ngayon?
Ang pinakamabisang bakuna, yung darating na bakuna, yung second generation vaccines, yung may panlaban sa Delta variant. Diba? Yung ngayon, pag-iisipan natin, booster, no booster. I'm just saying, we will get the best science. Na tingin namin, we will get the best experts. Kilala ko to. And we will decide based on ano ibibigay ko sa pamilya ko. Diba? Not based on other factors. Alam niyo na naman anong other factors Kailangan doktor ang magli-lead nitong COVID response.
But isn't that also, do you see the challenges of that being such a tall order because of the inequity, yung kulang po ng mga bakuna sa mga nagtatanong bakit madaming Sinovac? Dahil Sinovac po, ang milyon-milyon na nagdala ng bakuna dito. Some of course favor Pfizer, maybe even Moderna, but it seems the problem is the lack of supply. How will you be able to, even as a doctor, nasabihin po natin for the sake of argument, sabihin na mas mabisa ho talaga ang Pfizer, kunwari lang po or Moderna, pero dahil po may kakulangan ng bakuna, baka hindi din po talaga mapunta sa bansa yung mga the best, kunwari po, na bakuna. How do you intend to solve that?
Yes, tama po. It's very possible na hindi tayo mabibigyan nito mga best vaccines, pero it will not be from lack of effort. Talagang tututukan ni Mayor yan. Ngayon pa lang, intention to order na tayo. Kung dito lalabas, siyempre pupusta na tayo o order na tayo dito. Depending paglabas ng stats, o order na tayo dito. So based on what is best for our people, we will do our best. Okay lang naman sa tao, we try to get this medicine pero it's not available. So ito na lang. Pero yung masakit, yung hindi mo sure kung kinuha pa, hindi ba kinuha. So yung trust pag nawala yung trust ng mga public at doon sa mga doctors na maggagamot sa kanila, mawawala. Pag nawala yung trust, hindi gagaling yung pasyente. Magugulo lang tayo. So maybe I can offer that. Having said that, I'm not saying anything against the government. They are doing their best. Maybe we will just do it different. Ibang style ni Yorme, iba rin naman ang style natin para pagsasama. Maganda po teamwork namin.
Yeah, just to follow up, when sinabi niyo po during your speech yesterday na nakita niyo po yung mga healthcare workers natin umiiyak, plain and simple, sakali pong manalo si Mayor, manalo po kayo, alam naman po natin yung problema ngayon, yung current problem. Mababa po ang sahod, hindi po nila nakukuha yung kanilang mga benefits. Is there a commitment from you, dahil nga para kayo ho ang mangunguna ng health issue natin from you, number one, tataasan ang sweldo ng mga healthcare workers, at number two, siguradong mabibigay po yung kanilang mga benepisyo.
Sigurado bibigay ni Yorme yan at hindi lang yan. Siyempre gusto natin libreng dialysis, di ba, sa mga hospital as much as we can. We're not promising anything 6 months, 12 months. Kung ano yung kaya, ano makukuha natin na pera, talaga ibibigay natin yan. Especially the medicines sa mga primary care, sa mga health centers. Siyempre dapat puno ng gamot. Hindi naman pwede patingi-tingi sa mga kababayan natin. So focus namin ni Yorme, which is very similar, yung aabot on the ground. We don't want PowerPoint presentation, magre-relax lang dito, tapos na gusto natin maramdaman ng tao na sila mismo matutuwa at magpapasalamat sa atin, sasabihin, ay tama pala siya ang pinili ko.
We need to take a very short break. The Source will be right back. Well, you're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. We're going to have to say goodbye now on television. The Source is really just 30 minutes long, Mayor and Dr. Willie Ong. So we're going to say goodbye on television. Pagpapatuloy po natin to sa Facebook. So thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.
RPM, Radio Philippines Network.